Hello everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, your guide to all things geeky, and welcome to another episode of Comic Class, the show every single week on this channel where we just geek out about comic books, and I'll be totally honest with you guys. I say we do this every single week, but I was about to break that streak this week simply because we're a little bit behind here at the Thorgy compound. I don't know if you guys noticed, but we have yet to put up our Wonder Woman review, and I have another Wonder Woman video coming on the way. So yeah, I apologize on being behind on so many things, but we recently got a dog here, and it takes a ton of attention to try and train and calm down that guy. So I'm just a tad bit behind on all my videos, so I was going to skip Comic Class this week. However, then I read the finale to Dark Knight III, The Master Race. Now, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't planning on really talking about this series. I was thinking about doing it at first because I was like, this is a really big thing. It's Frank Miller coming back, doing the finale to his Dark Knight trilogy, which wasn't originally going to be a trilogy and wasn't originally going to have a sequel. It was originally going to be one thing, but this is the finale. There is no way they can do a fourth one. Probably. I don't know. They can figure out some way to squeeze something else from there. But for now, this is the end of it. So I was going to make a video talking about, but as the series went along, and as it saw delay after delay after delay, yeah, people kind of just started losing interest. It began to feel almost like if you run a comic book YouTube channel, talking about this was no longer a passion project. Talking about this was no longer something that you were excited to do. It was more of a contractual obligation, something that you just kind of felt like you had to do because I guess it's a big thing. And that kind of goes double for me, simply because, well, get ready for one of my most unpopular opinions when it comes to the world of comic books. Dark Knight Returns, the original Frank Miller series that kicked all of this off, and so many people look at it and says completely redefined the character of Batman, and they say it completely changed the face of the comic book industry. While I can agree with those statements, I don't necessarily agree that it was for the better. I gotta be totally honest with you. I know there are so many people who hold that book up and say it's one of the best Batman stories of all time. They praise it as being one of the greatest things that DC Comics ever did. I think it's alright. I think it's fine. In fact, in all honesty, I don't really care for it all that much. Don't get me wrong, I think it's interesting. I think it is a unique new look at Batman and Superman. I think that it has a lot of intriguing ideas, and as far as alternate reality stories go, I think it's a pretty fine one. But again, I think it's kind of just a product of its time, and I don't think it's really aged all that well. And I think that there's a lot of writing in that book that's supposed to kind of be iconic, but I look at it and I'm like, are you trying to parody yourself, or is this supposed to be for real? Because if it's a parody, it's kind of brilliant. If it's supposed to be serious, it's kind of dumb. I don't really enjoy it all that much. And also, my biggest problem with it, the reason why every single year I get a little bit more jaded to it and start to like it a little bit less, is simply because over the past 20 to 30 years, I have had numerous problems with the way that people in comics and movies and television and video games decide to depict Superman and Batman. And so many of those problems I have, you can trace them back to Dark Knight Returns. Like this whole mentality that Batman can defeat anyone out there. He can defeat anyone out there because of prep time. People always knew that Batman was the world's greatest detective. People always knew he was smart. People always knew that he could figure out a way to defeat an opponent. But they never came in here and said, well, he can defeat anyone. Anyone. Because he has prep time, and because he's so crazy and paranoid, he is constantly preparing for every single thing out there. That came from when he defeated Superman in Dark Knight Returns. Yeah, man, I've made videos about this before, but let's be real. He did not defeat Superman in Dark Knight Returns. He faked his own death, and then in the very next panel, Superman got right back up, little dirt on his shoulder they just brushed off, while Batman just laid there. That ain't exactly defeating him. You guys tend to blow that a little bit out of proportion. Oh my god, I can feel all the negative votes this video is getting. But I gotta keep going. And when it comes to Superman, so many people look at Superman and it's like, yeah, he's just some big dumb meathead. He just follows all the rules all the time. He just does whatever other people tell him to do. Again, that came from Dark Knight Returns. People always knew he was the Boy Scout. People always knew he stood up for what was right. But they never looked at him and said, well, yeah, if somebody corrupt was giving him orders, he would gladly follow them because they're the person in charge. No one ever thought that until Dark Knight Returns, and it's because Frank Miller was trying to make commentary on that image that we have of Superman. On what if it was kind of like taken to the extreme? It was never meant to be really taken seriously, and people took it seriously. And because of that, over the past 20 to 30 years, people have either been looking at Superman thinking he's an idiot, or they've been looking at him and going, well, we need to completely redefine him so people don't think this. It's like, no, the things Superman stands for are good. Just emphasize that. Just realize that and realize how you should be capturing that. But that's a rant for another day. We ain't here to talk about that. We're here to talk about DKIII, the Master Race. However, I did have to bring all that up because, like I said, I know many people were excited for this book, but their excitement kind of dipped down after delay after delay after delay. But with me, I really had no excitement for this because pretty much everybody out there thinks that Dark Knight 2 is terrible. But yeah, I wasn't even really that excited about the first Dark Knight. So yeah, I had no interest in this. But as I've been reading it, the story so far, it's been about the bottle city of Kandor and about how there are all these Kryptonians trapped in there, and one day the Atom decides, you know what, I'm going to use my shrinking and growing technology to return them to their full size, which I gotta be totally honest with you, when he said that, all I could think was, wait, has that ever been tried? Have we had the bottle city of Kandor and the Atom for 50 plus years in the comics? And this has like never been done? It has to have been tried at some point in time. Like, I know they've done tons of stuff with the Bottle City of Kandor. They've done tons of stuff with the people in there. But the idea of the Atom enlarging them? Has that ever been done? I've never seen it happen before. And that seems like a total no-duh moment in there. But basically, he enlarges them to regular size, and when he does that, he discovers that there is actually some crazy cult that has been growing in Kandor, killed off everyone who wasn't a member of that crazy cult, and now they're going to take over the entire planet. Yeah, it's an entire army of crazy Supermen. And when I looked at that, I thought, you know what? We already had the Batman so prepared for everything that he can take down Superman. So if you want to have an army of evil Supermen, fine. That seems like the appropriate final chapter for this Batman series. So, you know what? Go with it. But as the story went along, I thought it was alright. I wasn't really opposed to it. I kind of felt the same way that I felt when I was reading the original Dark Knight, which is like, interesting ideas. Interesting ideas. I'm not really getting attached to anything in here, but it's fine. However, it was around the middle of this when Superman finally kind of stepped back up. I was like, alright, it's time for me to rejoin this fight. And you see him and Batman teaming up, and you see Batman gain all the other heroes involved in this, and you see Batman, it's definitely his last time as Batman because holy cow, he is like 1,000 in this book. He was old in the original one of these, and even that was like 20, 30 years ago in this timeline. So yeah, he is about to freaking collapse. He cannot go on anymore. He is walking around in a mech that is designed basically to just help him stand up at this point. But he's still using his brain to help take down these Kryptonians. And there's actually a pretty damn good moment in there when he's using like Kryptonite Rain to depower them all. It's like, okay, you know, that's actually pretty darn cool. And then I love that Superman actually joins them in a giant steel Superman mech of his own. Because when I looked at that, I was like, this really feels like they're trying to recapture some of the goofy stuff from the Silver Age of comics, because that's the exact kind of thing that you would have seen back in a Silver Age comic. So I was like, all right, I'm kind of digging this, but then Batman ends up getting injured, and it's like, yep, this is it. This is when he finally dies. But then Superman picks him up and flies him across the world and drops him off in a Lazarus pit and returns him to being young, back in his prime again. I don't know how I felt about that. I mean, I know how I feel about it now after I've read the final issue, and I'll get to that in a moment, but I'm taking you guys on a journey from chapter to chapter. But when I actually saw that happen, I was like, wasn't this supposed to be the end? Wasn't this supposed to be like his last hurrah? Wasn't this supposed to be the finale to everything that you've been building since that first one? If he just gets de-aged and he's not back in his prime, that doesn't feel like a finale to me. Again, I will get to that in just a second. But at the moment, when I was reading that, I was like, what the heck is this? Like, why are you doing this? And then all the evil Kryptonian cult members are about to destroy the planet. They're going to take everybody out. And then it's up to Batman and Batgirl to go in there and save the day. And that leads us to this final issue. Oh my gosh, I love this final issue. I thought this final issue was awesome. I thought it was an amazing way to end this trilogy. I say trilogy because, let's be honest, this was never meant to be a trilogy, but it actually kind of makes it all work as a trilogy. Now let me just go ahead and say, because I work in a comic book store, I can read these books a couple days before they actually come out on Wednesday, so I'm actually recording this on Tuesday night, so I have no idea how everybody else out there is going to react to this. This could be the most hated ending to a series ever, and in a weird way, I could kind of understand that, because this whole franchise has kind of been about Batman standing up to the all-powerful heroes out there, standing up to all these giant villains out there, standing up for what he believes is right. This final issue, Batman returned to his prime. He gets a couple licks in by summoning out some bats, which I thought was actually a really cool callback to Batman Year One. In fact, he even says it's like, how about an old trick? It's like, alright, that's not bad. There actually are a couple of pretty decent lines in here. Like I said, about half the lines in all these Dark Knight books, I look at it, it's like, ew, I don't care for that much. But this one has got a couple of really good ones in there. Like, there's a line in which he actually says, predictability is the sidekick I never talk about. And I was like, that is an awesome Batman line. That is damn good. But he summons out some bats and tricks these Kryptonians into actually shooting themselves with their laser beams because they're a bunch of big dumb idiots. And they actually go down because of that. So he does do some stuff, but the reason why I say I can actually see some people really responding negatively to this is that after he does that, it just becomes a Superman book after that. It becomes not only a Superman book, it becomes a book that's kind of meant to define Superman and redeem him for the way that Frank Miller had been writing him previously in this series. Because as I said, I freaking hate how he has been writing Superman in the entire Dark Knight trilogy. But I kind of just rolled my eyes and gave it a pass because I was like, well, it's an alternate reality and it's supposed to be commentary and I understand that, and it's not his fault that other people out there took what he did as commentary and just ran with it and considered it canon and thought that's how he is. But this final issue almost feels like Frank Miller is turning to all those people out there who have spent the last 20 to 30 years looking at Superman like he is some big dumb dope who just has a bunch of powers and that's it. And they look at him like that because of the way that he wrote him and is like, I have to fix this. I have one more issue of this. I have to make people understand why Superman is cool. And in a weird way, it almost feels like him trying to redeem Superman in here is something of a personal story. And I'll get into that in a moment. But basically what happens next in this storyline is that Superman comes in as Batman and Batgirl are about to charge in to face all these Kryptonians with no real way of beating them. And Superman just comes in and goes, no, I got this. And Batman's like, you can't stop all of them. He goes up there and he's starting to get beat down by one of the other Kryptonians. And then he just goes, alright, I tried reasoning with you. I came in here peacefully. I wasn't going to attack anybody. I was trying to give you a chance to turn around. You didn't take it, so it's on now. And there's just a couple panels of him just taking them all down, like with a surgeon's level precision. Just, I hit here, I hit here, I hit here, I do this move, I do that, I do that. And then Batman, the guy who back in the original Dark Knight Returns looked at Superman and went, I've got the exact way to take you down. I have studied you, I've been planning for this. He is watching Superman do this and he goes, oh my god, he's been holding back this entire time. And that to me felt like the moment that Frank Miller just wanted to turn again to all those fans of his and go, what are you, nuts? Batman can't take Superman out? Do you know how powerful Superman is? And as he's taking each of them out, Batman is watching this going, they have the same strength as him. They've got youth on their side. Superman is getting old at this point while they are young and invigorated, but they don't have his mind. And I wanted to freaking applaud at that moment because, yes, as I said, so much of the reason why people look at Superman as just some big dumb dope who just follows other people's orders is because of the way that Frank Miller originally wrote him. This was Frank Miller coming in here and going, Superman's a freaking genius, alright? Do you know how many books in a second this guy can read? This guy knows Kryptonian martial arts that Batman could never even hope to achieve, and he has studied every single thing that he needs to study on this planet to know how to use his powers effectively. He is a chief strategist, one of the best ones in the DC universe. Of course he can take down all these other Kryptonians because power alone does not make him Superman. Yes, in that one line, that's everything that I got out of that. But from there, all the other Kryptonians decide, you know what, we're going to erupt with all our powers. We're going to go nuclear. We're going to blow up the entire planet with our powers. And then the Atom, who's been missing this entire time, ever since he freed them, he shrunk down into the microverse to try and escape them, and he was like, I can fix this, I can fix this, I can fix this, like he was clearly going insane because of what he had done. He then returns when all hope is lost, and just shrinks these Kryptonians down to the size of atoms, so when they explode, it's just, rather than it taking out the entire planet. Again, the Dark Knight series has been really freaking, well, dark. It's been really cynical. It's been really depressing. It has always had kind of this tone of, yeah, well, heroes don't actually exist, and if you want to be a hero, you gotta get tough out there. It's like, alright, I understand that's the tone it's going for. I'm not going to come in here and criticize it for having that tone, not at all. That's what it was trying to achieve. However, here at the end, when he has to resolve everything, the Atom comes in, and he's a hero. And a couple pages before this, when Superman's daughter is getting attacked by 3 other Kryptonians, Green Lantern, who they thought had been taken out, pops back up again, takes out these 3 other Kryptonians, like, oh my gosh, the heroes are freaking returning. That is a theme that's been going on throughout this DKIII, and I hadn't even thought about until this moment. Earlier in this series, when Batgirl is on a special mission and it looks like she's going to fail and she won't be able to escape, Aquaman shows up and saves the day. And then when Flash loses the use of his legs, it's like, oh man, the Flash is out of the fight, there's nothing he can do. He then just gets hooked up to a computer and he starts monitoring the entire planet within the span of a few seconds. He's using his speed even if he doesn't have the use of his legs. It's like, oh my goodness, it wasn't until this moment when the Atom popped up that I was like, that's what this has been about. The entire Dark Knight world has been so dark and cynical and it's lost heroes. This series was when the heroes returned. But then the series comes to an end, and it kind of ends twice. And I say that because every single one of these DKIII issues has had a mini comic right in the middle of it. And I understand that the mini comic has to be in the middle because of the way that the book is stapled together. However, I kind of wish that they had figured out a way for this final issue to put that mini comic at the end, because that mini comic really should have come at the very end of the series. So far, as I've been reading these, I always got to the halfway point, and then when I got to that mini comic, I would just stop and read the mini comic because it didn't really affect the book in any way, shape, or form. This one, it kind of did affect it, but it's too late to warn you guys. You have clearly already read this book if you are listening to my complete and total spoiler talk of it. Probably should have warned you guys at the beginning of the video that this was going to be a spoiler talk. My bad. But the first ending shows Batman, he's young again, and he's ready to go out there, and now Batgirl has graduated to being Batwoman, and the two of them are going to go out there, and he's looking at this Batwoman, and he's like, this time I did it. This time I chose right, because she's so smart, so talented. I'm going to learn so much from her. And earlier in this issue, he talks about he still has things to learn, and watching Superman, he was like, I had no idea about this. This issue was kind of meant to also show that Batman, he's still human, and it's important that he's still human. He's not some robot out there that just has infinite amounts of information in his head. He's still growing and learning like all humans are. That's one of the things that helps to define who Batman is. He's a human. But also, even just beyond that, we're not just talking about him learning information. We're also talking about him also just learning kind of to care again, kind of to be human again. Because, as I said, the entire Dark Knight world has been so cynical and so dark. When he's talking about how this Batwoman is going to teach him so much, he kind of just means about having a partner again. About going out there and not just being this big, angry brute that he had kind of become over the past couple of years. He wanted to go out there and just be human again, and he's finally found a partner who's going to teach him that again. But as I said, one of the reasons why I can understand people being upset at this issue is because, A, it doesn't really end the way that you would expect it to. The whole idea of him becoming young again and going back out there, I understand a lot of people were going into this thinking, okay, well, he's going to die. I'm actually okay with this ending because, as I said, The Dark Knight trilogy, it's defined by a world that's very cynical and very dark and very depressing. And this was the story where the heroes kind of returned, and Batman realized it's okay to learn again. It's okay to be human again. So in a way, even though he didn't die, he was reborn. He was willing to become Batman again. He was willing to become a human being again. That means the Dark Knight trilogy ends. That world of the cynical, no heroes, everything is messed up, it's ending now. In fact, we even see, all throughout this, we have been seeing little video clips of different politicians and different news anchors coming in here and talking all this horrible stuff, and it's supposed to be this big criticism of the way that the media works and the way that politics work. But at the end of this one, you've got very clearly Donald Trump. They never say it, but it's very clearly Donald Trump in there, talking about how they're going to create the greatest wall ever that will stop all Supermen from ever entering. And then the news anchor just goes, no, shut up. And I was like, that's what he's trying to say. People are starting to wake up in this. People in this world are no longer just sitting back and existing in this big, bland world. They're actually starting to wake up and call bullcrap when they see it. That's what this was all about. The Dark Knight world has ended. Batman didn't end because Batman goes on forever. But this dark world, it's over with. It's finally a new day. And to me, one of the things that really shows up what I'm talking about is that Superman has decided to go missing again. And he hasn't just gone missing because, like, I'm going off into space to find the remains of Krypton again. Or I'm going up to my fortress and I'm just going to sit up there forever and I'm never going to do anything. And which is kind of where this storyline started. He goes missing because he goes, I'm going to be Clark Kent again. I'm going to put on the glasses, going to put on the suit and tie, and I'm going to go out there in the world and just be human. Myself, I'm not going to be a god up there, standing there, watching everyone at all times, just thinking about how I can't do anything to help anyone and what's the point of anything. I'm going to go and be a human again because that's the greatest feeling in the world, and he's going to teach his daughter how to be human. His daughter was raised by Wonder Woman because Superman was like, you know what, I can't really blend in with the humans anymore, I'm giving up on my humanity, I'm just going to go out there and hook up with the only other character out there who's as powerful and strong as me, even though she lives far away from humans, and in this world, Wonder Woman has also become disconnected from humanity. So yeah, it's basically just the daughter of an alien and a Greek goddess Amazon, someone who has no connection to humanity. But at the end of this, it's Superman going, you know what? I'm not a space alien. I'm not some god. I'm Clark Kent. And being Clark Kent is the greatest thing in the world. Because being Clark Kent means I get to be human. And they just list off all the wonderful things about being human. And while he's doing that, you see this montage of Aquaman rescuing people in a ship, Green Lantern saving people from a volcano, The Flash stopping a bullet from hitting an innocent bystander. You see heroes rising up and returning to this world, and he's telling all this to his daughter, and his daughter's like, I don't understand why you think this is the greatest thing in the world. And then he just goes, you don't understand what it means to laugh, to cry, to watch seasons change, and for that to be the greatest feeling in the world. And it's actually a really moving speech about why it's important that Superman is not just some alien. It's important that he is the most human superhero of them all. And then his daughter actually goes, show me this world of yours. Show me, teach me. And so the two of them just walking out there with glasses on and normal civilian clothes. It's like, Superman has returned to being Clark Kent. And if Superman isn't Clark Kent, there is no Superman. He's back. And as I said, this doesn't just feel like Frank Miller came in here and said, this is how I want to end the story. It feels like he came in here and went, this is personal to me. I have grown and changed myself as a human being. I want to tell that story. Because there is a moment at the end of this in which Batman is looking at his big computer, and it's a big map of the world, and he's talking about how Superman went missing, and he says, did you go missing because the world kind of gave up on you and the world didn't think that it needed you? Because I didn't think that I needed you either. And I realized I was wrong about that. You'll always be my friend. And I was like, that doesn't feel like Batman talking. That kind of feels like Frank Miller talking. That almost feels like Frank Miller, some guy who did always kind of criticize and did always kind of view Superman negatively. It feels like this was him kind of stepping up going, you know what? I kind of get it now. I kind of get why we need Superman. I kind of get the importance of this character. I kind of get what he represents, and I'm sorry that I didn't understand it before. I'm sorry that I myself turned my back on Superman. And that is what, to me, makes this not just a really good ending to this trilogy, it makes it a great ending. It makes it a very personal story that you can't just sit here and just simply enjoy. You can also dissect it and try and figure out what the meaning is behind it, and try and figure out what the writer was really trying to say, not just about comics or the planet, but also himself. But then again, as I said, I'm reviewing this the day before it comes out, so for all I know, the entire world hated this, and I'm just a crazy guy who doesn't know what he's talking about. Then again, how would that be different from all my other videos? Anywho, thank you guys very much for tuning in for another episode of Comic Class. If you liked this video, make sure that you share it around the web. It's the best way to help our channel grow. And if you want to see other comic book videos from us, we do them every single Wednesday on this channel. So make sure that you click that subscribe button. And if you enjoy anything else from the world of geekery, we also do movie and video game reviews on the weekend. So thanks again for tuning in, and you can always follow me on Twitter and Tumblr at Professor Thorgy. Come back next time, everyone. Bye.